Story 1. Cheese is a chain of people being hungry and kind of brutal, especially the rennet step, which is an enzyme found in ruminant stomachs. Okay, so you know how we saw a calf suckling from a cow and tried that? You know how we killed and ate that calf, then stored its mother's milk in its own butchered stomach to drink later? You know how milk normally goes bad, sour and chunky, and can make us sick after a couple of warm days? It congealed a little differently this time in the stomach we used as a container over weeks and months on hot horse rides across the landscape. Who wants to try it? Story 2. Caviar. Rocky Mountain oysters. Mushrooms before one knew which ones were poisonous. I am still unsure how people went from "that waving wheat sure smells sweet when the wind comes right behind the rain" to "let's grind it and make flour and then put live yeast in and make bread." Glad they did, but it seems magical. Story 3. Cheese, especially blue cheese. Oh, the milk you left out solidified? Yummy. Oh, there's blue stuff on it? Oh, that's mold. We have to have it now. Or something like that. I wasn't there to witness it. Story 4. I have a tendency to overthink everything, and all of culinary history overwhelms me. For example, with coffee, some people notice goats becoming excited after eating certain plants. But roasting, grinding, and brewing are more complex. Figuring out which plants to eat, some only partially, some raw, some cooked, some seeds are safe while fruit is deadly, and so on. This post really disrupted my weekend. Story 5. I cannot say for sure, but whoever got past the prickles of a pineapple and found the deliciousness inside must have been a god to his community. Story 6. That coffee is made from beans that were eaten, partially digested, and excreted by the civet animal. Story 7. Chocolate. Let's crack open this strange-looking brown pod. Remove the slimy seeds. Let them ferment for a couple of days. Then roast them in the oven. After removing the outer shell, press the seeds under high temperature until a liquid butter appears. Then blend that with sugar and milk powder. Story 8. Lobsters used to be so plentiful in New England that the indigenous people would not eat them. Lobsters were fed to pigs and prisoners. Who decided that? With a little bit of butter, I bet they are good eating. Story 9. I want to know how many people have died or gotten sick from eating mushrooms, since we can only eat a very small percent of what exists. Story 10. Greenland. Kiviak. Blubber pickled little auks. You catch a lot of auks and stitch them into a fresh seal pelt that still has the blubber attached inside. Stuff the whole birds tightly in there. Feathers, intestines, feet, and everything. Have someone jump on the sealskin to pack it tightly and remove all the air completely. This is important because air can cause harmful bacteria to thrive. The wrong bacteria can be deadly. Stitch the pelt tightly and seal the stitches with more blubber. Then bury the stuffed pelt underneath heavy rocks in a cold, shadowy place for 3 to 6 months to ferment. Once the birds are ripe, dig out the sealskin pelt and open it. Do this outdoors, as the smell is pungent. You can eat the birds straight from the sealskin, as everything is thoroughly fermented. The fermentation must be done correctly, as any mistakes will allow harmful bacteria to thrive, which can be fatal. Every year, someone dies from eating blubber-pickled auks that have not been properly fermented. Story 11. Artichokes are large thistles that must be boiled for about an hour to obtain a small amount of edible food. Someone was desperate. Story 12. Cheese. If you look at how it occurs naturally, in the stomach of a calf or baby goat that has just drunk its mother's milk. The first people to discover cheese likely slaughtered a young ungulate, butchered it down to the stomach, found this coagulated milk, and decided that was worth eating. And they loved it. Story 13. I was thinking of cow's milk. Not just drinking it but milking a cow for it. It is normal nowadays, but people probably thought it was unusual. Story 14. Oysters and mushrooms. I like mushrooms, but many mushrooms are toxic. Someone kept trying them to find the safe ones. Story 15. Anything with an exoskeleton. No one who knew where their next meal was coming from would say, "Hey, that giant angry-looking cockroach looks like something I might want to put in my mouth." Story 16. Beer. Someone got really thirsty at some point and only had dirty water but needed to sanitize it somehow. Story 17. Hakarl is fermented shark. I ate some of the shark that ended up in my fishing net, but I got really sick. I guess I'll bury the rest in the sand and leave it be. Smash cut to wintertime. I'm on the verge of starvation. Even that terrible shark would be better than dying. I better go dig it back up. It didn't kill me, but it tastes like licking a cat pee popsicle. Story 18. Bull's balls, also known as Rocky Mountain oysters, prairie oysters, or cowboy caviar. Who decided to eat bull's balls? Do you know that there is sperm in them? They do not remove the sperm before cooking. Story 19. Snails, escargot. Hey, look, there is a slippery creature crawling on the stone. Shall we fry it with garlic? Story 20. The Nordic tradition initially served as a way to prevent outsiders from stealing limited food, but became a favorite after people grew accustomed to it. Salt licorice was originally just cough medicine, as the company that made it was pharmaceutical-based. Story 21. Honey. Those loud insects that sting you if you get too close. I bet they are hiding something valuable. Story 22. The durian fruit smells unpleasant but tastes great. It must have taken an epic display of sheer willpower to try that strong-smelling nugget of sweetness for the first time. Then imagine trying to convince a second person to try it based on its merit alone. No, it tastes really good, trust me. Story 23. Lobster was sitting on a rocky shore when an ocean spider approached and said, "Hey, that looks like dinner." Story 24. Nothing really. I'd imagine that what is edible probably dates back to before we were smart enough to care about grossness. The bigger question is smoking things. How stupid do you have to be to discover it in the first place? I understand why people would do it after it has been a thing. Story 25. Stinging nettle causes an itchy burning sensation anywhere it touches your skin but is apparently edible after boiling. 100% on the dying before you tried it list. Story 26. That answer has to be hakarl. It is shark that has to be cured and then hung to dry for 4 to 5 months. It is still described generously as an acquired taste. Story 27. I know people have mentioned cheese already, but I always wonder what was going on with the first person to milk a cow. Was Billy just handling the cattle until he realized we could drink the milk too? Story 28. Pokeweed. The amount of processing required to render the leaves safe to eat is extensive. Story 29. Greenland sharks. Who discovered that if you bury the shark and let it rot for months, it is no longer toxic? Story 30. If you have ever made your own tahini, raw product tastes very bad. In hummus, it makes the dish stand out. Story 31. Ackee is a fruit from West Africa that is also grown in the Caribbean, mostly Jamaica. If it is ripe, it is safe and used in many Jamaican dishes. If it is unripe, it can be fatal. Story 32. Gravy. Who saw some grease and thought, I bet if I add some milk and flour, that will be great on my biscuits. Story 33. Tripe. Using intestines to wrap raw fatty meat and spices, then hanging them in a dark cave for 4 weeks. Story 34. Hakarl. A Greenland shark dies and washes up on your Iceland beach. It's February 1705, and your food stocks are running low. You eat it and you die. It's November 1727, and food is running low. Your child, who remembers you but not fondly, finds another Greenland shark and recalls your last words. It tasted like toilet cleaner and death, so he leaves it, and it gets buried in the sand at the beach. But by March, desperate, he digs up the shark, cuts it up, and hangs it from the eaves because his wife would rather die than smell it in the house. But he eats it anyway and dies. For months later, his wife is down to eating her boiled shoes. Now shoeless, she eyes the crusty Greenland shark meat still swinging from the eaves. She scrapes off all the dried, red, crusty residue from the fluid leaking out of the shark meat and takes a bite. It tastes like betrayal and turpentine, but she doesn't die. The next day, she chases it down with a glass of spirits made from rotting potatoes flavored with caraway seeds. She will later name it Brennivin after her first boyfriend Bren, who left her for an ice queen named Ingrid. She thinks another chunk of rotting shark will clear away the awful Brennivin taste. She still hates you, Bren. But the rotting shark is worse, so it's back to the Brennivin. until the need to clear Brennivin's taste and Bren's memory with more rotting shark. This was how the Icelandic tradition of washing down Hakarl with Brennivin was born. Story 35. Shrimp. Who saw that and said it will go well with some horseradish sauce. Lobster has a big claw and big tail, but who looked at a shrimp and said, I bet I can eat 30 of these in one sitting? Story 36. Blue cheese. It is so rotten you can literally see the mold, yet someone decided to put it in their mouth. I am glad they did, but the first person to discover blue cheese and eat it must have been very hungry. Story 37. Mushrooms are good, but if I have never eaten a fungus that grows out of waste, I am not going to try it just for the sake of it. To be honest, animals probably already ate the waste and then said, everything is gone. It is just that strange fungus that grows out of waste. Then they got lucky. Story 38. I was a vegetarian for about 3 years in high school. I was traveling with my family in rural Queensland, and it was freezing. The only accommodation we could find was a farm, and they offered one meal choice: lamb chops and vegetables. Guess who tucked right in? Story 39. Avocados before they were genetically modified through breeding were mainly pit and bitter, not like they are today. They do not ripen on the tree. Imagine picking up a bumpy and wrinkly fruit after it has been sitting on the ground and scraping your teeth along a thick outer cover for a small amount of bitter green flesh. You would have to be very hungry. Story 40. Civet coffee is made from coffee beans that are collected from the feces of a civet and then roasted. Story 41. Kidney and spleen. I never want to eat filtered organs. Also, the people who have told me they eat them all claim they are wonder foods. Story 42. Fermented and dried shark from Greenland. Hakarl. It tastes like rotting fish soaked in ammonia. Story 43. Tripe. When I moved to southern Germany, I worked in a local restaurant and thought I had to try everything there. It was a mistake. I like the nose-to-tail concept, but tripe is just unpleasant, and somehow the locals love it. I am not a local even after 34 years. Story 44. There is a common dish in northern Brazil called manicoba, pronounced manisoba. It needs to be cooked for 7 straight days. Otherwise, it is poisonous. How did they find out? On the 3rd day, Francisco died after eating it, so it needed more cooking. Story 45. At some point in history, someone somewhere got very high and leaned to his friend and said, Bro, imagine if fish were spreadable. Story 46. Not so much desperate, but I wonder about the trail of thoughts that led to artichoke being tried for the first time. Story 47. Cashews. I don't know the exact process, but I am pretty sure it involves wearing gloves because of the toxic resin. Story 48. Haggis. Let us take a sheep's bladder, stuff it with oatmeal and other ingredients, and eat it. Somebody was either very hungry or lost a bet. Story 49. Chocolate. The process of going from cocoa beans to chocolate is long and complex. It is surprising that someone decided to follow these exact steps to create chocolate. Story 50. See that chicken? I'm going to eat the first thing that comes out of its butt. Is everything all right back at the cave, Thag? Story 51. Mushrooms are low-calorie, but quite a few are toxic. Was it worth gathering and eating them? Story 52. Can't believe nobody mentioned ballot yet. Ballot is a fermented duck fetus still in the shell. It is common in the Philippines. Story 53. Crab. Who looked at a crab and thought, yes, I am going to boil this sea spider and eat whatever is inside? Story 54. Fugu comes from the overwhelmingly fatally poisonous pufferfish. It is about as difficult to find an edible part as it is on a blue-ringed octopus. Story 55. I have not seen it, so maybe nobody thought about it, but honey is my how the hell did humans decide it was safe to eat food? How did we know that inside a bee's nest there was something very sweet, delicious, and safe to eat? Probably bears, but still, I wonder what the first person thought. Story 56. Isn't there some fish you have to prepare or cook twice? Otherwise, it will still be lethal? I wonder how that went. Okay, Steve, you try it first. Steve dies a horrible death. Okay, that's not good. Maybe cook it again. Hey, Jimmy, we got a fish you need to try. Story 57. Fugu, also known as pufferfish, who looked at a fish that can literally kill you and thought, yes, I will risk death for a bite of the squishy sea balloon. Story 58. Blowfish. After watching countless people die after eating it, someone said, maybe I won't die like everyone else who has eaten this, and took a bite. Story 59. Carl, I think you can only eat something like that if you are really hungry. There are also fermented soybeans which they eat in Japan. It sounds very unappetizing. Story 60. Anything that involves pickling or fermenting. Technically, that means taking a gamble on something that is rotten but finding it is rotting in an acceptable manner. Story 61. A Reuben sandwich, who looks at all those separate ingredients and thinks they are good together. Spoiler alert. They are. Story 62. The traditional fermented bird dish in Greenland is called kiviak. It is made by fermenting whole little auks, a type of seabird, inside a seal skin for several months. This process preserves the birds during the harsh Arctic winters and results in a dish considered a delicacy. Preparation. Kiviak is made by packing 300 to 500 whole auks into a hollowed-out seal carcass. The seal skin is then sewn shut and buried under rocks or stones for about 3 to 6 months to ferment. Starvation is often the only way to determine if this dish is edible, as it is said to have a taste similar to blue cheese. Story 63. A local burger place near me. I think they were either starving or very eager to make it. 3 patties, a ton of cheese, burger sauce, pickles. It's called the Ultimate King or something like that. Whoever made it, you deserve cold pillows every night, and may you always have your favorite drink cold in the fridge. Story 64. Just an aside. I see this question a lot. The thing is, we used to be wild animals. The first person to try oyster or raw liver was probably closer in mentality to a cat. We probably gave everything a lick at some point. The question, how did we find out this is edible, also needs to be placed in this context. How do birds know what is edible? The same way. Story 65. False morels are deadly when raw but can be prepared for consumption by following a few specific steps. You must boil them twice in plenty of water without a lid and change the water each time to remove most of the poison. If there is no proper ventilation, you can be poisoned by the vapor. Touching other food or handling food with contaminated hands can transfer poison and cause poisoning. They are considered a delicacy in Finland but have not been recommended for human consumption since 2025 by local food authorities. Imagine your friends dying after consuming them raw, cooked, boiled, and then deciding to boil them once again and still eating them because you are very hungry. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.